It's a 5-day stage race around one of the smallest countries on the planet. Small in size, but packing quite the punch in terms of varied hilly terrain for bike racing. Hello and a very warm welcome to the Skoda Tour of Luxembourg. It's a beautiful start to the race. Sunshine out, and these are the riders who have topped the timesheets in the last few years. Defending champion Matthias Schelmoser is not here. He's recently been action over in Canada. This is the lineup for the week, and it's a really difficult course. Only one stage really for the sprinters. Today, up and down, 156.4 kilometres from the capital, back to the capital, and up and down plenty of hills. Let's have a look then. 151 kilometres to start off, 2,500 metres of climbing. Going north, and it's around a third of the way through the route that the hills really begin. 4 categorised climbs today. 2 of them all category, but it's the final climb inside the last 10 kilometres, called the Stafelte, back on the way into town, that will provide the biggest test. And it's an uphill finish too, let's not forget, on the Kirchberg. Today's profile looks like this on the Skoda Tour of Luxembourg, and there are 20 top teams fighting it out for glory. A beautiful day today, 22 degrees, not too much wind about, and this is the first sight of the peloton climbing the Côte de Bourchide. We're well into the last 80 kilometres now. But this is how it started, a little cloudy before things cleared up. And at Neumünster Abbey, all of the big stars were ready to sign in and please the crowds. That included the winner of this stage last year, Valentin Madouas. Thibaut Pinot is back for his final stage race as well. And local hero Bob Jungels, the man of Luxembourg cycling in the last decade. With Andy Schleck, Tour de France winner, and one of the greatest Luxembourger athletes of all time, the race director, and ready to set things in motion. His brother Frank was the last Luxembourg winner of this race. There's been no national winner here for over a decade. When the flag was raised and everything began, this was the scene. It wasn't a big fight for the breakaway today. 4 riders were able to get up there more or less straight away. The action was started by Vito Braat. He was joined by Mats Wenzel and Oliver Knudsen. Leonard Turkels was there as well. Knudsen has since been dropped, and there are now 3 riders at the front of the race. 80 kilometres to go. Turkels, Braat and Wenzel, and the gap now having gone from 6 minutes to now 3.5 minutes. It's stage 1 of the Skoda Tour of Luxembourg. The man in the yellow on the left-hand side of your screen is the man who's the oldest and most experienced in the breakaway. He's no professional wins, but his name is Leonard Turkels. He's a Belgian rider and try to keep this going today. Alongside him, wearing 196, it's one of the riders from the 3rd division of pro cycling. He's one of the youngest riders in the race from the Leopard development team, 20 years of age, local rider Mats Wenzel. And at the back here, wearing 153, a man who's on his way to the World Tour in just a couple of months' time. He currently rides for Flandre Baloise of Belgium. He was the first attacker here. He's off to Intermarché over the winter, and he is 22-year-old Vito Braat, trying to keep things going. One of the couple of Belgians here. Original break had 4 riders from 3 teams. 2 Belgians, a Dane and a Luxembourger. All of the 4 riders who've gotten the earlier break on debut in this race. We've seen Israel Premier Tech trying the best of control. They've been helped today by UAE Emirates, Movistar, Bora Hansgrohe. Groupama FDJ have contributed at times as well. And this is the current scene, descending into the start of the next climb. Côte de Bourchide. second of 4 categorised climbs today. The weather is absolutely sensational, isn't it? Through the many wooded areas of what is a small but beautiful country. Started out the cosmopolitan capital city today. That's where we'll finish as well, but into the woods, up towards the Ardennes and the border with Belgium. Not too far from the German border as well today, in the state that is nestled between several of Europe's bigger states. France to the west as well. This is the Côte de Bourchide that's almost 3.5 kilometres long. It is the longest of the climbs on the route today. Average gradient of 7.3%. Maximum almost at double digits there. It's a really tough test. And as an all-category climb, there's a lot of points available in the King of the Mountains competition. Chance to look around at a few chateaux as well today. One of the final stage races of the season, isn't it, this? Of course, we'll have the Tour of Guangxi, the final World Tour stage race, live for you and on demand on Discovery Plus and GCN Plus. But here, this is the second division race, the Pro Tour race from Luxembourg, and you're looking at Bourchide Castle. Parts of it beautifully preserved, other parts left in ruins. It's quite the mix, isn't it? On a sunny day like today, the race passing by. The view's quite stunning from up here, but almost 500 metres above sea level. Don't let anybody tell you that Luxembourg is flat. It might be a small country, but there's plenty of ups and downs. And as well as these short, sharp climbs, there are plenty of rapid descents as well that are going to be a feature of this race throughout the week. Well, with a gap at 3.5 minutes, the way this race is going to run is that we should expect the longest stage tomorrow to be won for the sprinters. The Queen stage, as detailed by Andy Schleck, the race director, on Wednesday. And that's going to finish at another castle up at Vianden Castle. Average gradient of the main climb on that stage, to be climbed 3 times, is 18%. So I think it's pretty much safe to say that it's going to be one for the climbers. We'll have a time trial on Saturday. That is at Pittange. Just under 25 kilometres as well. And then the final stage back to Luxembourg. The final showdown on the Papiaberg. The finish near the city centre on stage 5. And in terms of how this works, we've got 20 teams here of 6 riders. And as you can see, some of the biggest teams in the world, it's Movistar who are racing here. They've brought Alex Aramburu, likes of Will Barter and Matteo Jorgensen, who's departing the team, remember. Could be a man to watch in the overall. And depending on his time trial performance as well, you could say that Gregor Mühlberger is in that category, the Austrian champion. Israel Premier Tech are giving them a hand. They're one of the second division teams here, and well, it's a wonderfully strong lineup for them. I think quite a few World Tour teams will be jealous of the lineup, with Volsang, Uhl, Nederlands, Strong, Turns and Woods, all winners on any given day. It's possibly the strongest lineup I've seen at this race for quite a number of years, certainly since its date change. For those of you maybe new to this sport, this is an event that was born in the 1930s. 1935, in fact, was the first edition. It used to take place in June until a post-COVID date change. Now, of course, where we are now, the end of summer, beginning of autumn, in September. So rebooted and reinvigorated. A race that now and in the future is going to come either before or after the World Championships. In this case, a little later. As you see the line of Luxembourg on your picture there. And no, I'm not talking about a rider's nickname, that's the Grand Duchy's flag. A kilometre to the top of this climb then. I'll try and learn as much as we can about the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg throughout the week. It's a multilingual state, a peculiar way of making sure that all of its inhabitants speak all of its languages. That's to do with the way that education works and which language is used where. And they also have their own language, Luxembourgish. German, French and English, of course, in business. Very much well spoken. It's also a state that has quite a history with cycling. Tour de France winners, the likes of Charlie Gaulle, his exploits in all different types and all different races. The Schleck brothers, young Ulster, most recent monument winner as well, who's here. Again, for a small nation, Luxembourg is a place that really does punch above its weight. There's one of the team cars up ahead. Tudor Pro Cycling, they're one of the invited teams here, the second division teams, led by Bingo, who are out the break in the yellow jersey. As are Flanders Baloise from over the border in Belgium. Israel Premier Tech we've seen, Lotto Destiny here, as are Tudor Pro Cycling, who we mentioned, in Uno X. And the two third division teams, one represented on the left-hand side, that's Leopard. And Global 6 is another, and I'm afraid they've only come with 4 of their 6 allotted riders. Quite sure what the story is behind that, but all the best to them. It's going to be a difficult week, and they didn't manage to make the breakaway today. They do have one of the promising young Luxembourger riders in Tom Virten. Virgin, I should say, pardon me. Of course, his brother Luc is part of this race as well, racing for Tudor. Here we go then, coming to the top of the climb. There's a look round there from the rider from Bingo. Bingo, Wallonie-Bruxelles, that's landed, Turgles. And the sprint's about to be launched. KOM point here. Going through the gears rather than the motions. It's Turgles who's still at the front for now. Coming around, though, is Mats Wenzel. But through the centre here with plenty of power is Braat. He'll take second place, and that's a brilliantly won KOM by Mats Wenzel. So there's 77 k's to go, and the Côte de Bourchide climbed. Maximum points and a lead in the King of the Mountains classification for now for 20-year-old Mats Wenzel, the 4th youngest rider in the race. Well, as a Luxembourger, certainly have the local parkour knowledge. Not that we're too much of a distance away from Belgium for anybody who wants to come and do a recon. The other two riders in the breakaway, of course, from the neighbouring country. It's lunchtime in the peloton in the meantime. And this is Chris Nelons at the front. Former national champion of Latvia, on the attack almost without cessation, without stop at the Tour de France. Ida Schelling through the centre in the green. He'll be changing teams over the winter. UAE Emirates, of course, picking up some very big results recently. Fantastic win in Montreal with Adam Yates, of course. Several of the riders who participated in that success are here. Mark Hirschi being one of them, Diego Ulissi another. Ulissi, former winner of this race, remember. The young Jan Christen, though, and Felix Großschartner as well, in fine form. Now then, this is the replay of that King of the Mountains point. And nicely won. Task now is to try and keep this gap. 3 points for Mats Wenzel, 2 for Victor Braat, and Leonard Turkles taking the 1. And the view from up on high is a nice one. Bit of a false flat towards the top here. Descent won't take long in commencing. As soon as they do descend, it's very quickly uphill again in the Côte d'Eschdorf. It's a shorter climb, but a steeper one. All category climb as well. And the peloton are now over the top as well. Well, I'm Rob Hatch, by the way, for those of you just joining. Many of you will be expecting to hear Brian Smith. He will be joining us as soon as possible. And he'll be with us all week long here. Anything you miss, a reminder that you can catch up on GCN Plus and Discovery Plus. We've also got the European Championships on at the moment. And we'll be building up to the final monument of the season, the Giro di Lombardia, over the next couple of weeks. And the last World Tour stage race that will be coming up next month. The restarted Tour of Guangxi in China. Our first sighting of a Global 6 rider. Doors open there for Jonas Hurt. And this is Magnus Kort. Now of EF Education Easy Post. But not for much longer. He's on his way to join one of the up-and-coming teams from Scandinavia. Uno X team, consisting entirely of riders from both Norway and Denmark. Kort coming from the latter of those two countries. .74 kilometres to go on the opening day in Luxembourg. Chris Nailon's on the front. And joining me in the commentary box, it's a very good afternoon to Brian Smith.
Good afternoon, Rob. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. It's just one of these situations where we changed a whole system, and apparently a letter in my email address was... I had more letters in my name, let's put it this way. So I'm here, and that's all that counts.
You've not missed a thing yet, Brian. We've got 3.5 minutes with 3 riders still out there. I can tell you that Mats Wenzel just won the King of the Mountains prize at the top of the Côte de Bourscheid. Everybody just on this false flat here, Brian. I've just been reminding the viewers that Luxembourg is anything but a flat country. Of course, there are no great mountains here, but we've got plenty of climbs. Up to around 500 metres above sea level here. We're going to dive down very quickly and be climbing again up the Côte d'Eschdorf. You might find it's a funny mix of languages this week. We've got French, we've got German, Luxembourgish as well. And the peloton here, they've got this in hand today, haven't they, for now, Brian, you'd say?
By the looks of things, yes. It's always in the first stage of an event, it's who's going to control things. And you know, every event starts differently, and this is only kind of short. Yeah, quite recently I've done a lot of different events. Tour of Britain, Tour of Denmark, Renew Tour and things like that, and it's always a case of what does the first stage consist of, and it's got hilly down, you know, is the route for stage 1. So, you know, we've got a few climbs to come, and we've got a climb just about, you know, first category climb with 9 kilometres to go. I think it will be a pretty much short and steep climb, but you know, riders will always get in the breakaway. It's very difficult for a lot of the kind of top teams to infiltrate the breakaway in the first stage because they just kind of cancel each other out. But we do have some good riders here. We had 4, as Rob's already mentioned, down to 3. And, you know, they're pushing on. Still a long way to go, 73 kilometres, but 3.5 minutes advantage. And, you know, most of the riders that get in the first day breakaway are hoping for 2 things. One, there might be a possibility of staying away. You know, who's going to chase and that kind of stalemate behind. It rarely happens in races, but it happens from time to time. But then again, it's the intermediate competition. Getting in a breakaway here, taking King of the Mountains points, taking sprints and things like that. Now, when you get 1 or 2, 3 days into an event and you've got some good points, other riders kind of switch off and look at other competitions rather than maybe stage places rather than try and get these competition jerseys. But as we can see from the front of the peloton, it's quite interesting to see the teams that are here and willing to ride at the fronts. And I think one of the teams you just noticed there was the team of Movistar, with I think looking at potentially kind of overall Mühlberger seems to be a rider there, but I think in this sort of finish, in this kind of hard climb, possibly Alex Aramburu, after good showing in Quebec just not that long ago. So I think that's the reason why they're riding. It's always a quandary to why teams ride on the front. Most teams ride on the front to get nothing out of it, but I think they've got a good shout in Aramburu.
There's some fantastic riders here. I was just looking down. I think this is the best start list, Brian, since this race moved from a summer race to an autumn race, or end of summer race, let's say. Let's be optimistic about things. It's nice weather. It's 22 degrees, isn't it? Which was, 3 years ago, just after the COVID pandemic.
Yeah, I was looking at that, Rob, and I was, when I printed the start list off, I looked at some of the riders that are here, and, it's good. And normally, like you say, it clashes with other events. It's gone from in my day, it was 4 days. Like you said, it wasn't always the best fields. Beautiful part of the world. I've raced here. I haven't raced the Tour of Luxembourg, but I have raced around here. And like you say, it's pretty hilly country. It's up and down, and I think the race organiser has got a nice route this year. Andy Slick is I think the chair of this event, and he puts on a good race. And I know that the European Championships are at the moment, so there's always going to be that kind of clash. And of course, at this time of year, and at any time of the year, I think, apart from maybe July, and if you want to compete with the Tour de France, then good luck. But it's just a packed calendar, and what attracts you to these races. And I think that the route of this race, because we've got races happening all the time, we've got races in France, in Belgium, and in Italy at the moment. It's kind of cram-packed. So where do you fit this race in?
Well, this stage last year was won by Valentin Madouas, Brian. Groupama FDJ are not riding at the minute, despite the fact that they have a wonderfully strong race lineup on paper, at least. Gaudu, Madouas himself, exciting young talent Pivy, and the Pinot Farewell Tour is here as well, accompanying local Luxembourg Jeunettes on home roads. You mentioned Movistar were riding. The other team that are riding are a second division team, though, Brian, with very much a Premier League lineup. Israel Premier Tech. Which of the 6 strong riders are they riding for here?
Well, that's a good question. They have got multiple options. I would think, because recently I was covering an event where Jakob Fuglsang was riding particularly well, and Corbin Strong finished well in Quebec, in Canada, to get up there in the podium. Michael Woods coming to form slowly but surely. I would think they've got multiple options. Dylan Towns, I don't know what he's done over the kind of last few races, so I'm a bit indecisive about him. But I think Woods slowly but surely coming to form. But I think this could be getting over this climb, good finish at the end. I think this could be a Corbin Strong day. If I'm going for Aramburu for Movistar, Corbin Strong could be a good bet for this first stage.
Kiwi rider for Israel Premier Tech. I think we can be sure of one thing. One of the men they're not riding for today is Chris Neylands, because he's been on the front doing quite a bit of work. 2 minutes 22 gap for you Australian followers, and just under 70 kilometres to go as we see a few of the Azure Desert Citroën riders move up on the left. Now, talking overall, they're one of the strongest squads on the whole start sheet. 4 out of their 6 riders are Grand Tour stage winners. And talking of strong squads, the man you saw on the left-hand side there just move up. Julien Alaphilippe is here as well. And, well, if there was ever a stage race with short, punchy climbs that would suit this man on form, it would be this. Question is, how on form is he?
He was very close, wasn't he? He was fighting in Canada. This is his first race after that. And, all day long, this type of finish up. Quite a hard climb before the end. And he can sprint well. You know, he can sprint well from small groups. He can win alone. He's such a versatile rider. He's even won bunch sprints in the past, and you would think that, you know, he would be another. So many riders here. I even think that Uno X, you know, the Tobias Johannesson, a very strong rider, can sprint a little bit at the end as well. So there's, I think you've mentioned it all, a really, really good field here with so many different options. And, you know, I'm really looking forward to this one, because I think, Rob, this comes down to kind of motivation as well. It's getting to that part of the year, September. If you get your contract next year, yep. If you haven't, then you'll be racing hard. Are you going to another team next year? Yep. So I might not be as motivated. I've already got my contract and I'm going to another team. So it's one of these situations this time of year where I think the Europeans are at the moment, and I'm hoping that everybody's here just kind of concentrating on this race rather than maybe coming here. And I don't know the team selections yet. I haven't kind of looked at the European Championships, but with no World Championships, Rob, at the end of September, it's all about motivation. I think you mentioned, from what I caught of it, there's some still big races to come. There's the last monument to come, Io Lombardia, and it's great to see that both Pogacar and Roglic are go up against each other. And, you know, with the potential of Evenepoel there, it's going to be a cracker. But there's so much racing, but again, it's all about motivation. Well, that's what I found. I was always motivated. I love this time of year. I love autumn. I love racing at this time of year. Possibly a little bit better than the start of the year, and definitely in the middle of the year, because it got too hot for me. But this type of year was perfect conditions, and I think we've got that here. And I think if you're motivated to do well, I think you can do well. I always say to teams that the best place to start is right at the start of the season, where that's where a lot of the kind of World Tour big riders haven't got maybe top form. Maybe they've not had too many races into it, and you can gain some scalps. This time of year, it's all about motivation.
Breakaway motivated to try and stay away as long as possible, but the gap's coming down. 2 minutes 15 seconds as they're onto a descent that's labelled fast and curvy on the start sheet. Not too many curves, it's a main road really, isn't it? But it is extremely fast because of that. And the speed will change quite brusquely. We're into a very short flat section before they start to climb the Côte d'Eschdorf, one of the hardest climbs of the day. 4 classified climbs today, but there's plenty of unclassified climbing as always in the Tour of Luxembourg. Look at this, a look around who's where. And we've got our first sight there of Richard Carapaz back in action, building up on his way to the Giro di Lombardia. Coming back from that nasty crash and injury. We've seen him competing already in Italy. I think the team, EF Education Easy Post, wanted him to get a stage race in his legs primes before he wanted to take on that final monument of the season. Of course, there's the monument distance to factor in Lombardy, isn't there? And the fact that there's 5 hard days of racing here, 700 odd kilometres in 5 days, lots of climbing. It's good prep, this.
Yeah, he was one of the ones I was surprised with, because normally, Rob, when you do that kind of block of racing, whether it's in the north of Europe or whether it's in kind of Italy, you stay there with your team. So you get yourself into a hotel with a bunch of your teammates and do all the Italian races. And I was a little bit surprised when I seen him, because I covered a race a few days ago in Italy, and he wasn't that kind of far off the pace, finishing in second. You can watch all these races and the highlights. Brilliant racing so far in Italy, it always is. And you know, I was a little bit surprised when I saw him here, but I think you've just pretty much answered my question. Coming here, but is he coming here for the general classification? Not too sure. I think he might pick his days. This day will suit him. Again, a rider that can go over the climb and can sprint towards the end. But I think you say the accumulation of, you know, some of the climbs that we've got here will be good kind of preparation for Rio Lombardia. You can see him up there, the Ecuadorian champion, quite easy to pick out. Looks like a sweet in the kind of pink and yellow. And he's definitely on form. And if Rio Lombardia is a goal, then he needs as much racing as possible, because some big guns riding.
Keep your eyes on other riders getting ready for the Giro di Lombardia. One man hoping to end his career in glory there is Thibaut Pinot. It's likely to be his last ever stage race. And it's a route that could really tempt him into doing something special. Certainly keep your eyes on today and maybe Wednesday. It depends on how it's raced towards the end of the day today. Got the late couple of climbs. First the Côte de Staffelte, a descent, and then the final climb, the Kirchberg, in the capital itself. Well, for those of you wondering where we are within Luxembourg today, we've gone north. North geographically before we turn back to the capital south to finish. But there's plenty of north and south all day long, isn't there? It's the undulating stage. They've just been south, they're on the flat, and they're about to go north, uphill again in a minute. With all the firepower that Brian's just been talking about, the best that these three can hope for is to snaffle some King of the Mountains points today, isn't it, Brian?
Yeah, I think so. It's coming down. Since we've been on air, it's coming down quite quickly. So it's been well controlled by Movistar and Israel Premier Tech. Although some teams are kind of pushing towards the front. I think Tudor Pro Cycling have had a good season this year. They will always come up and try and get involved. You know, sometimes riding as a World Tour team, kind of learning the kind of whole process. And they've got Alexander Kamp, who seems to be a rider that can sprint at the end, go over these climbs. I think that's the answer of the day. Someone that can do that. But beautiful part of the world, as we can clearly see here. Just about to start this climb, and not easy at all. Anywhere round about Luxembourg, but a very kind of clean place. And like you say, surrounded by so many different countries and so many different languages.
Good training roads as well. I mean, there's been stories of riders moving to Luxembourg, being resident here despite not being from the area. A long history of quite a few Danes coming to live here. Onto the Côte de Eschdorf, 2.8 kilometres long. Look at that, the average grade is 8.4%. And we're talking about things getting ready for the Giro di Lombardia. Maybe some climbs here are slightly shorter than most of the ones they'll take on in Lombardy, but they are very similar in terms of gradient. This is perfect training terrain for the race of the falling leaves. The weather's great as well, isn't it? I mean, it's always a lottery, whatever time of year in Northern Europe. The scenery, though, is always there. And just take a look at that.
Like a postcard.
And it is the castle up in Esch-sur-Sûre. National flag of Luxembourg flying there from the castle tower. It's like something from a film set, isn't it? Splendid. Certainly one of these places, Brian, that you get off air after broadcast and you start looking at flights and you think, oh, wouldn't mind having a few days up there, taking the bike, just riding around. It looks splendid.
No, definitely. You know, kind of lovely, kind of clean part of the world as well. Very green as well, as we can clearly see. But yeah, I've got a friend that moved here, a Danish friend that kind of looks after the national team. He lives here. Don't know why. Maybe it's kind of a lot closer, maybe to Denmark than possibly, because you know people come here for different reasons. You know, that's why we see many people going to kind of Monaco or Andorra, and for those same reasons, some people come to Luxembourg, and it's a little bit closer to potentially the temperatures we get there. But yeah, definitely good racing conditions.
And that was Jan Christen going off the back there. There's a rider up here as well who's Michael Vink. Just keep your eyes on that. Did Christen have an issue? This is Valentin Madouas at the back as well. Just wonder if a few riders have stopped here for some sort of break. You wouldn't expect the likes of Madouas or Christen to be struggling on this terrain. Same with Diego Ulissi. Of course, the chase is on at the minute, isn't it? And things are very much calm in terms of racing. Let's say the race for the win hasn't really started yet, Brian, but the foot of one of the most important climbs of the day. Maybe strange to see some of the bigger names ever so slightly off the back there.
Yeah, I think it's a case of I think they realise that nothing is really going to happen in this this climb. It's one of these feelings. It's very difficult, having been out the peloton. It's very difficult to read a race from the pictures that we're seeing, but you get a sense of feeling in the race that how things are going to happen, and by the looks of things, with the control of the peloton, you can relax a bit on this climb, because you're thinking that nothing's going to happen. Of course, you're not always right, you take some chances, but we talk about it in other races that some riders like to ride in the front, some riders ride down the back. Madouas being one of them. He's okay, he's a bit more relaxed. We saw that in some of the kind of Canadian races, that he doesn't mind being there, just he finds it more relaxing. But I think it will be in the final climb that it will all kind of kick off. So, but we'll see. There's a bit more pressure being applied by a new team at the front, Rob.
Soudal Quickstep have come to the front, and it's another man who's counting down to his final race in the saddle. It's Dries Devenijns. Soudal Quickstep, who we've talked about, have brought Julien Alaphilippe here. They have Andrea Bajoli, another rider who's changing teams over the winter. He's off to Lidl-Trek. There's Fausto Masnada back on his bike. Mauri van Sevenant, who is in fine form in Quebec. And Inel van Wilder, who's riding very, very well at the minute. Going out the back here is Magnus Cort. 32 with him is Marco Haller. It's a steep, steep climb, this. And first day of a stage race, just getting going. Sometimes these steep climbs can bite you for a little bit.
I think maybe they're not feeling too good. Oh, definitely they're not feeling too good. But normally, Marco Haller and Magnus Cort, they would be towards the front. That they wouldn't worry too much about this day and trying to get to the finish and trying to sprint out. So potentially, maybe just a little bit under par, Rob.
Perhaps as well, like you just mentioned, Brian, we're sitting here watching this on the telly as everybody else is at home, or whether you're on the move watching on GCN Plus, Discovery Plus. There's plenty going on, and perhaps the pace that's being applied at the front by Dries Devenijns is harder than it looks on the telly.
Oh, of course it is. It's always harder when you look at it. It's not until you go to a live race, and I would encourage anybody that's listening, try and take in a live race, stand at the side of the road. And one thing that I say to a lot of people, maybe not now because I think they're a little bit more educated, and it always amazes me. Even I was talking to something for an event. I had to hire a van locally at Enterprise, and I went along there, and one of the managers there from Essex was there, and I got kind of chatting to her about different things. She said, "What event are you doing?" I said, "I'm going to a gravel cycling event, the British Championships, at the King's Cup over in Suffolk." And she said to me, "I'm just back from Barcelona, where I was watching La Vuelta." And I went, "You don't know, people normally say, especially in Britain, the Tour of Spain." But she said, "No, La Vuelta, loved it." It was raining, of course, at start of La Vuelta, and she loved it. But just people are just coming away with things. Everybody knows who certain riders are as well, which I think is great.
That was Jonas Rutsch, who was moving up Richard Carapaz, and the pace is on. And I think the brake's starting to understand now that they might have not much longer left at the front of this race. That's one of the reasons why Mats Wenzel is off in search of points. Now, if he takes the maximum points at the top here, he will be moving into the King of the Mountains jersey, Brian. We're talking about one of the youngest riders in the race, a young talent from the 3rd division here with Leopard Pro Cycling. He's a local boy, and what a story this would be. A local lad on the podium at the end of the day, but he's got to get to the top and make sure he takes maximum points.
Yeah, always about motivation, and I said at this time of year about motivation, but I think for any time of year, any time that these kind of smaller teams, especially these young lads, get the opportunity of racing against some big teams and getting on television, that says that in itself is more motivation than anything else.
You need the legs as well as the motivation, and look who's here. It's Leonard Turkles. That he might have the kick on the flatter terrain towards the top. They're about 300 metres now from that line, but it kicks up again here. Turkles just on the left in that yellow jersey. Belgian rider for the Belgian team, Bingo Wallonie Bruxelles. 10 years the senior of Mats Wenzel, who's only 20.
Yeah, you can clearly see the size of gear. He's just waiting to pounce. If I was Wenzel, he's in a lot smaller gear. I'll just wait. But I think you're right. The way that he rode across that gap, he looks super strong.
Keep your eyes on this, and it is terrain that would seem to suit more Turkles here. And here comes the sprint. Wenzel now is going to lead it out. It's the perfect position, isn't it, for the experienced rider. Little bit of a slip of the gears there as he moves to the left-hand side. Does he have it? It's a big one, and he does have it, just about. Leonard Turkles picking the pocket of young Mats Wenzel and taking maximum points there. More points here because this was an all-category climb.
That was good from Wenzel. I just wish he had left it a little bit later there. He was in a smaller gear. But he went here, I think, purely because he thought Turgos was quicker, so he went from distance. Turgos come across there, but I would have hesitated a little bit more, left it a little bit late. It was close in the end, Rob, but I think it was just the strength in the end from Turgos that got that one from Bingo. But that was close, very close. And I think if he'd have waited another 20 metres there, he may have got that one.
A lot closer than I think we were expecting it going into the last 250 metres of that climb.
He was in a huge gear, wasn't he?
A massive gear. You could see it sort of slip as he started the sprint as well.
Yeah, it's just a torque. It will go through these changes now, and you know, for obvious reasons, as we get up to kind of 12 gears at the back and things like that, you know, the chains get a little bit smaller, a lot of tension on them, especially when you're in a big gear and you're starting to kind of sprint a little bit, and you know, that's the kind of nature of the game that we've got. But you know, we had 4, then 3, now we're down to 2.
1 minute 20 then. Mats Wenzel from Luxembourg, Leonard Turkles from over the border in Belgium. Wenzel's the man in the navy jersey here, and in the fluorescent yellow it's 30-year-old Turkles. This is Chris Nederlands, former national champion of Latvia. 1 minute 16 behind. Now we're going into an area of this race now that is much more undulating, and then there's a flat section that's around 15 kilometres long before the final classified climb today that comes within the last, 9 kilometres.
I think for those who watch the Tour de France, seeing this rider at the front, Chris Nederlands rides, you know, really well, and it's always the case when you get, you know, small teams that are here of 6 riders. Who are you going to put on the front to chase? You know, you consider Israel Bremerteg. I've got Fulsang, Hooley, Nederlands, Strong, Townsend, Woods. Like you said at the top of the programme, who are they riding for? You know, it's a super strong team that they've got here, but if someone has to do the work, then you have to make the call.
This is the one of 7 national champions on the start list, but the most important here. Why? Well, he's wearing the flag of the home nation, isn't he? It's Alex Kirsch, Luxembourg's national champion, racing for Lidl Trek. Defending champions, but haven't brought their strongest squad here. Doesn't mean they don't have a potential winner overall, does it? Because Giulio Ciccone is on the start list, Brian.
Yeah, that's good. You know, I would say Tesfazion, Kirsch is here. Helmoz, Galapan, you know, he's another rider retiring. Cataldo, a very experienced rider. But I tell you what, Rob, and I was quite privileged to be able to do this, but it's really nice being a national champion, but see you riding your national tour, it just gives you a little bit of that kind of extra special motivation to do something special. And I think Alex Kirsch is that sort of rider that will want to do something special here and kind of show off that jersey in his home tour. We've got, you know, quite a few riders from Luxembourg here, but just having that jersey on is extra special.
Ever so briefly back there with Vitor Brat, and now we're with Julien Alaphilippe, who himself is riding here in the wind at the front, blowing from left to right as we look at it. And Alaphilippe trying to split things up, Brian.
Yeah, it looks like it. He got Dries Stevenings to ride kind of hard and often. And I was actually having a conversation at the weekend there about different kind of parts of training and what you learn from training, and kind of former pros, what they teach you. And one of the things that I learned was you ride hard up a climb in training, but go even harder over the top for the next kind of 400 or 500 metres. And it doesn't exactly go downhill. And so you always look at opportunities. And I know we've got this climb coming up as well towards the end, but always look at an opportunity to split a race. If you've got teammates in front, I know it's not a huge peloton today, Rob, but always look at an opportunity. First stage, Alaphilippe coming up, Masnada there, you know, just look as if they're trying to kind of split things up. So I don't think there's enough wind to be able to do that, but you can imagine if there was, it'd be absolute chaos here.
Masnada's come up, as you said. We can see that Richard Carapaz there is in about 4th position in his Ecuadorian national champions jersey. We saw the man from Western Australia, Ben O'Connor, Tour de France stage winner and top 5 finisher. He's up there as well in the white and brown of Agir des Arts Citroën. And it has got quite blowy here. Of course, some of those wavering leaves are caused by the helicopter, but not all of them. A move on the left-hand side. Lotto Destiny, accompanied by Jumbo-Visma. Amador is up there on the right as we look at it. Out from Costa Rica. Bob Youngles escorted to the front. He's wearing the green of Bora Hansgrohe, and the former winner of Liège, Bastogne-Liège. Top 4 finisher at the Giro d'Italia. And of course, white jersey there as well.
It's always strange to see him in a team jersey, because for years and years he was always Luxembourg champion.
Well, we're slowly getting used to it, though. Has not been anywhere near as successful in the last 3 or 4 years, unfortunately for him. And unfortunately for Luxembourg cycling as well, because he was on his way to being a Grand Tour superstar. He did have that very good comeback last year when he won a stage of the Tour, of course. Brat has made it way back to the front, but it might not be for too long the way it's going, Brian.
No, I don't think so. They've got it well under control. I don't think they're too kind of worried, to be honest with you, to bring these kind of 3 riders back. When they started riding on about, you know, it was about 3.5 minutes, and they brought it back quite quickly. So, you know, almost 3 minutes have been brought back in about 20-30 kilometres. Nobody really kind of wants to take it on now. No real reason to do that. I think Movistar and Israel Premier Tech were the teams that were controlling things, and now that it's only kind of 30-odd seconds, everybody's kind of sitting back. Nice to see Soudal Quickstep try and think about doing something. But I think it's a case of, when we saw Madouas and various other riders right at the back, just a case of just kind of saving everything for this kind of final climb and the run down to the finish.
See, the wind is still affecting things, just the way everybody's riding here, but of course it's a twisty-turny route today. There's not many long straights, so not many opportunities where you can say, okay, we've got this 10-kilometre section, for example, like you might have in Paris-Nice at the start of the year, where you know the wind's going to be always there on the exposed sectors. Even here, we're twisting and turning onto this descent. And it's a really fast part of today's stage, isn't it? Heading into these uncategorised climbs that are going to take us up to the intermediate sprint in Mensch. Truce in the peloton for now. Campenarts at the front. He's in the red, white and blue. You've got Amador alongside him in the pink. And there's a lot of looking around. Tischbenut makes his way up to the front as well in the yellow jersey. There's Diego Lisi left-hand side. Cycling royalty along the front here, Brian.
Indeed, for this race. But I think more is about kind of keeping your nose out the winds. I think that's acceleration by Alaphilippe has got people a little bit nervy now. You don't want to kind of throw it all away in the kind of first stage. It's only a 5-stage event, and I think there are a lot of riders in here because of this time trial we've got in it. It's especially in the kind of final throes of the race that you really want to try and take a little bit of advantage. And this is a hilly stage today, and tomorrow, just looking at it, we've got pretty much a sprint stage. Then
probably the only one, I think, isn't it, this week?
Yeah, I think so. It's got kind of flat sprint stage, mountain stage in the third stage, then we get the time trial, and then what happens in the time trial, I think you've got a very, very difficult final day. I know it's quite hilly, but I think what the organisers are thinking, because there's a couple of kind of back-end sprints in the circuit towards the end, I think they're hoping it's still going to be quite close by then, and we'll have a kind of final day of fireworks, because, you know, this time trial, 23.9 kilometres is long enough to make some decent gaps.
Caught a sight there of Matteo Jorgensen sitting in his Movistar jersey alongside one of the yellow jerseys of Jumbo-Visma. And he's the man who's going to be heading to Jumbo-Visma over the winter. One of the men who's going to be joining, well, not just one of the most successful teams in recent years. You have to say, after what we saw on Sunday in Madrid, Brian, one of the most successful and historic teams we've ever seen in professional cycling. Before the race gets going today, what's your take on the 1-2-3 from Jumbo-Visma and Madrid, and, well, the 1-2-3 Giro, Tour and Vuelta?
I think it's brilliant. I don't like dominance, and I think a lot the fans didn't like the dominance of kind of Team Sky in a day, but I think Jumbo-Visma have kind of superseded that, and I think it's very unique. I think to win all 3 Grand Tours with 3 different riders, there's not. I think it's the only team that I can think of that's got riders capable of doing that, because these riders cost money. When you consider a Grand Tour winner, you're talking about around about what contract, about 5 million, round about that. And if you put 3 Grand Tour winners together, that's 15 million. That's the budget of a kind of whole World Tour team, some of them. So yeah, I think history's been made, and it was always a case that I think Team Sky were trying to do it for so many years and failed. And it was always a goal. It costs a lot of money. They've got a big budget, but at the same time you need a little bit of luck, and you need the right riders to be able to deliver it. And I just thought there's some stages that were a little bit, what's happening here, why they drop in Kuss, what the reason, and there's a lot of indecision. And you've got to remember that for a lot of kind of sports directors, it's a difficult job managing this situation, especially if you have no TV pictures and you don't know what's going on in the race, and the riders have to kind of think for themselves. But at the end of the day, some people don't like the fact that it was kind of gifted to Sepp Kuss, but I think at the end of the day he deserved it, and he earned it for all that kind of hard work he's done over the past years. And it's not the first time that gifts have been made in certain teams and things like that. That's just
I'm not having that word. Yeah, I'm not having that word. I know you say it's not okay. It's a gift. It's definitely not a gift, is it? Come on. I mean,
no, it's not. But if you come to the finish, was it E3? Where was it that Wout van Aert?
Yeah, that was different. I think that's very different. You're talking, this is a man who's been in a breakaway, took the red jersey. I think he was a very, very worthy winner. But yeah, I mean, there are gifts in cycling. Let's not beat around the bush. They happen. I mean, I can think about Contador and Tiralongo and all that sort of stuff. And again, rewarding lots of work. But this was a very, very different beast. This was a Grand Tour winner, a unique one, as you say, because it's the 1-2-3, and there's a different way of deciding who would win. But of course the legs had to be there, didn't they, over 3 weeks?
Of course they have. Like I said, deserved and earned. But like I think we both agree there are gifts. I think the strongest man, from what I saw, because it was difficult because I was doing other things and I wasn't covering the Vuelta, from what I saw in the kind of catch up, Vingegaard I think was the strongest rider there, which again is exceptional in itself. I think now in modern cycling, everybody that looked about doing the double, I'm talking about Giro d'Italia, Tour de France, and everybody said that's just too difficult to do now. But to do the Tour de France Vuelta, well, that would have been good. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think for cycling, I think to go back to your question, what my thoughts on it, I don't like domination. I like to see kind of teams mixing it up. And I know that's what Team Sky maybe went through a little bit, with the kind of fans and things like that, not liking it and the way they controlled things, maybe before in the kind of Lance Armstrong period. But I think because it's Sepp Kuss and because he's such a a lovable and likeable guy. The fact that he's come from America, which is a huge boost for that country as well. I just think people are willing to kind of accept it. It's not often that good guys win, and good guys don't win bike races, but I think they did this time.
They certainly did. I mean, again, there's too big a conversation for me to be had to talk of gifts and things like that. I mean, there was even talk of Jumbo-Visma sports directors being worried that Kuss was going to take too much time, so you could argue that he was going to take more time and actually win the Welter earlier when he was in the breakaway. And that was something I heard from the directors themselves talking to Daniel Friebe on the cycling podcast. But yeah, Jumbo-Visma, the first and only team to have won all 3 Grand Tours, and they did it with 3 different riders. Now we're seeing the French champion there. Sorry, Brian, go on.
Yeah, no, you just finish that. You've got to remember, who allowed this to happen? Who allowed Sepp Kuss to be in the breakaway first and foremost? It was the team. So the team put themselves in their own situation and had to make some big choices and decisions, which luckily were made in the end, but not easy.
There's the French champion on the left-hand side. You were talking about big morale boosts there and amazing feats and things happening. There's been a big blow to Groupama FDJ, which I'm just learning about. We're not seeing too many Groupama FDJ jerseys in the middle of that pack. And I was all ready to talk about the Thibaut Pinot farewell tour, his last ever stage race. David Gaudu getting back to racing and working to get those legs into the right way to take on the Giro di Lombardia. I am afraid that both Pinot and Gaudu have abandoned halfway through the opening stage of this Skoda Tour of Luxembourg. Thibaut Pinot and David Gaudu both feeling unwell, I'm afraid, and are out of the race already. That is a big blow. So we're starting to see a little look around here. Alpecin-Koenig deciding that they want to go up the road. Soudal Quickstep asking the question of Israel Premier Tech and Movistar, saying, well, shall we chase him?
Yeah, that's every team has got their options. When you think of Quinten Hermans, Soren Krauw, Xander Morrison, there's 3 names that I'd put in the mix. Even Axel Laurence, the young French sprinter that's kind of moved over. But I think looking at a team that I think they're just maybe 5% off the pace a little bit, and I think that's why they're starting to, do kind of probing moves.
46.5 Ks to go. And here the trio, they've been given a bit of a reprieve. You were hinting earlier on, Brian, that it was too early maybe for things to come back together. Of course, conventional tactics would say that, but as we've just been discussing about the Vuelta, not much is conventional at the minute, is it? It's a wonderful time to be a bike racing fan.
Well, I'm going to use that word that you don't like. They've been gifted another minute.
The wind's really blowy, isn't it? I mean, given the fact we're not on the ground, I did obviously check, as we always do, don't we? The weather, the wind, which direction it's blowing. It's part of our race prep for every single day we do. You see the leaves and the trees and you wonder, oh, is that the helicopter? But no, it is really blowy out there today. And every time they turn into one of these exposed fields, you can just see the riders over to one side, a few nervous people moving up. It's certainly something that we're going to have to keep our eye on in the final 45.7 Ks. Certainly as we're coming up to what is the flattest section of the race in the next 30 Ks or so.
Do you know, there's always a thought of what you're going to do as a pro cyclist, what you're going to do when you end your career, and it comes to everybody. I think for especially cyclists, road cyclists, like you say, they've got access to all these apps, and the one thing that they always look at is the wind direction. I know from my work with the teams, that's something I always kind of looked at in detail, because it's okay for us to go on, and I use an app that changes, all the time, and it's okay when you go out there, Rob, and you look at the wind direction, but as you know, it changes from the time of day as well, so you have to kind of keep on looking at it as you go along, because what could be a a headwind could turn into a crosswind halfway through a stage, and unless you're kind of keeping up with that. So for a lot of these riders out there, if you're looking for a career afterwards, think about being a weatherman.
Unfortunately, the way the world's going, that might be an even more difficult science to predict. A minute and 40. A man who's on his way to being the king of the mountains in your picture right now. Leonard Turgles racing for Bingo Wallonie Bruxelles. Head down in the break, trying to stay out there. A young talent on show just behind him, 20 years of age, Mats Wenzel. A Luxembourger, racing for the Leopard TOGT Pro Cycling Team, development team from Luxembourg. And in the middle there, well, they're breakaway staples, aren't they? Flanders Baloise. And Vito Braat, who's been in the Flemish school of road cycling for a while, moving up from the very well-known Flemish school of road cycling, Flanders Baloise, formerly Top Sport Vlaanderen. They've been around since Adam were a lad, haven't they? And he's moving up to Intermarché next year, one of the Belgian world teams. Another of the Belgian world teams, Soudal Quickstep here, and Dries Stevenijns again. A lot of chat still about Soudal Quickstep. Who's going to be there next year? Most of the talk at the minute, who isn't signing for them. I mean, chat yesterday about Tim de Klerk probably leaving. We haven't had any confirmation from a team, but the chat was yet another signing for Lidl Trek. That, I must stress, is a rumour at the minute, but it seems to come from very well-placed sources. I must admit, that is one man who I never thought I'd seen a different jersey.
Yeah, you could say that. He's the kind of engine room of the team. We've seen him so much riding on the front, but I think Patrick Fevler he's had to make big decisions. He always says he's not got a huge budget, right? And he's always looked after it. He doesn't pay over the odds for anybody. People come and ride for him because they gain success. And, you know, he's just proven it over the past, that the success he's had. But as soon as you start, you know, building a team around Evenepoel, you know, and I believe there may have been some chat between other teams and, you know, Evenepoel and kind of looking at it. But I know that by the looks of things, Evenepoel was kind of happy to be in that team. But to have that kind of GC team that he requires, when you have to kind of compete with the kind of Jumbo-Visma who have just done the treble, you need to build that team around them, and that costs a lot of money. GC teams cost a lot of money, and something has to give. And when you consider the amount of riders and top riders that are moving away to other teams, the only reason is they've possibly been offered a contract, and they can get more money somewhere else, and they've decided to go somewhere else. Or like Fabio Jakobsen, he's decided that, well, if you're not going to take me to the Tour next year, you know, I want to ride the biggest races in the world, and Tour de France is the biggest, so I'm going to go there. So there's a lot of different reasons for that to happen, but I know I don't often say that. I feel a little bit for Patrick Lefevere this year, because he's had to make big decisions to make sure that, you know, Evenepoel was happy, because if he's happy, then Patrick Lefevere is happy. It's during the season when there was a little bit of kind of rumour mills going around that other teams were kind of trying to kind of pinch him and things like that, and they had to do something about it.
Still fiercely competitive and fantastically successful on the bike. 50 wins again racked up recently on the bike this season. You know, maybe not as... They're not the only team out there with those big wins, are they, at the minute? You know, Jumbo-Visma and UAE are racking up win numbers, rather like we saw Soudal Quickstep doing, like no other team was doing for quite a few years. But it's off the bike. I'd like to spend a brief moment speaking about Soudal Quickstep, if I may. Just while the race is like this, a minute and 20 seconds, and heading in, what, about 15 kilometres to our intermediate sprint. But we really have to congratulate Soudal Quickstep today for throwing their weight and working behind a brand new campaign. They're working with a Belgian charity named Teleon Taal, and they're trying to build awareness about a campaign that is aimed at encouraging people to look after their mental health, removing the stigma around talking about our personal mental well-being and looking after each other's mental health as well. I know this is something that's certainly very dear to quite a few people within the team, and I'm sure you won't mind me saying this. Phil Lowe, team press officer, you'll have seen his face being showered in champagne at the World d'Espagne by Remco Evenepoel a few times. That's the lighter side of his job, but of course I know that he has been working for a couple of years on this initiative. Within the team, the initiative is called Part of the Pack. Of course, they are the Wolf Pack, aren't they? The self-styled Wolf Pack. Soudal Quick-Step. They're going to be promoting the positive effects of cycling, being active and healthy in general, and all of that can have on everybody's mental health. And with Teleontal, they've built a number of tips onto how to start conversations, how to look after ourselves better. There's a micro site online. If you go to the Soudal Quick-Step website, you'll find the link, Part of the Pack. Plenty of details about seeking help from charities like Teleontal and their sister organisations in 40 different European countries. So this isn't for anybody who lives in Belgium, this is for everybody out there. I know that Phil and the rest of the team are very passionate about this. It starts with us.soudal-quickstepteam.com. We really must congratulate Soudal Quick-Step, and of course, wherever you're watching, whatever you're doing, check on your mates, won't you? Make sure they're okay. Ask a question. And that's not always easy, is it, to talk about things? It's good to see that everybody's trying to spread that message. Wolfpack are part of the pack and working very, very hard to increase awareness and just getting people to chat. And it all starts with a chat, Brian.
Yeah, of course it does. I say everybody has got their own issues, and it's not easy being a bike rider. It's not easy being part of a team. You know, I learned a lot of this working with teams, and it wasn't just the riders I spoke to. It was the mental health of the staff. You know, the mental health of, especially the mechanics. You know, first rider, the first people up, first, you know, last to bed. You know, I used to spend a lot of time with them. I know Phil personally myself, and you know, been out on the bike with Phil when he used to live in the UK, and you know, he's had his own problems as well. He had a little bit of a kind of hip injury, and it took so long for him to get back on the bike and feeling okay. I'm glad he is. I follow what he's doing when he's living. I think he's living just outside Antwerp, or in the Antwerp area, in Belgium somewhere. So he is getting out and about, and you know, he's got a kind of high pressure job as well, and you know, looking after the kind of PR communications of a team like that, it's not always easy. But yeah, like you say, it's just that kind of opening up and asking a question, because everybody has kind of underlying problems at some time. It's you know, not all the time, but it's sometimes they just want that kind of question.
I'll say it again. Check in on your mates, won't you? Onto the unclassified climbs on our way to the intermediate sprint and Mensch. And back to the Roman mosaic here on the way. The centre of those very well maintained gardens. Takes some time, that, doesn't it? And it's time that's being taken back again by the peloton now. Once more, it's Dries Devenijns who's working hard. And this is his terrain as a bike rider, isn't it? Short, sharp climbs, can ride all day on this sort of thing.
Yeah, he's one of these riders that can do well in some of the kind of flat races in Belgium, but, you know, exceptionally well when it goes up and down. And, you know, over his career, and, you know, I've been commentating probably over 17 years now, and you'll see him in some of the kind of flat races working for the team, and you see him in the hilly races. He's very kind of versatile, but I think you've seen him in the radio just a moment ago, just having a wee chat about, you know, whether to ride like he did before. You know, they were the team that came up and started riding first and foremost, and the gap came down to the breakaway. They gained another minute, and now he's back at the front again.
38 k's to go as the sun shines on a glorious afternoon in Luxembourg. It's stage 1 of 5 of the national tour. Over 700 kilometres, plenty of climbing and a time trial along the way. Starting in the Luxembourg capital today, finishing back there on Sunday. As well as old castles and beautiful small towns. We'll see the cosmopolitan city. Out in the sticks right now to the north and heading south again. And these are the 3 men of 4 who were in the initial breakaway today. They had a maximum gap of 6 minutes. The one man missing is the 24-year-old Oliver Knudsen, the Danish rider from Leopard Pro Cycling. A local team had 2 riders in the break, didn't they, at the start of the day? Only Mats Wenzel remains. He's the man in the middle here in those navy shorts and navy jersey. At the back in the white, blue and yellow, you're looking at Vito Braat. In his last few races for his current team, Flanders Baloise, he's going to be graduating to the World Tour next year with Intermarché. Another Belgian in the break as well in the shape of Leonard Turkels. Current gap is 1 minute 2 seconds. It's been Movistar, Israel Premier Tech and now Soudal Quickstep doing most of the racing today. A little bit of wind about, as you can see, and teams again nervous about moving up, making sure that they're not caught out in case of any splits. The latest team doing that in the pink, you can see EF Education Easy Post, just in the foreground of your picture, moving up. And they're moving Richard Carapaz towards the front of this race. Some news to bring you about 2 riders from Groupama FDJ. We heard that Thibaut Pinot, riding probably his last ever stage race. We were assured that was going to be the case. That may change now. David Gaudu as well has abandoned the race, so both of them abandoning. I'm afraid not a good start to the race for Groupama FDJ, who won this very stage last year with Valentin Madouas, who is now the French champion, and I can tell you is very much still in this race today. Just spotted Ben Healy as well, Brian. He's a rider to look out for on this parcours.
Yeah, and from recent races in Canada, he was at least kind of trying. Never kind of paid off for him, but he was there and thereabouts. So I would think that hilly terrain like today, he's another rider that will be in the mix. Not a rider that packs a good sprint in the end, but who knows if it kind of splits up, in the run in towards the finish. But let's see what he can produce. There's so many riders in this race that have got possibilities. It is unfortunate the duo, especially in the first stage when you climb off at the feed station. It always kind of creates question marks for me. Are they really sick? Did they come here just to kind of make the numbers up? Until we get kind of confirmation. But it's easy to see, they're here sick. As most people know, that you have to kind of come here with a certain amount of numbers. But to lose Gaudu and also Pinot, I think it's a big blow for the race.
Well, that's Søren Kraup. He knows these roads very well. He's a Dane. I'm not sure if he still lives here, but for a long time he did live in Luxembourg at the start of his career. He said he didn't really want to move to the warm climes of Monaco or down into Spain or anywhere like that. Preferred the cooler weather. A man who likes fishing in his spare time, and there's plenty of rivers and lakes to do that here. He loves it here. Be a good rider to look at the overall as well, wouldn't he, with the time trial involved?
Yeah, his form's been there, not quite there as we've seen in the past. So, as you say, I don't think he's got much to worry about round about Luxembourg. Good time trialist as well, but let's see what he can do. But definitely a top rider, but is he in top form? I'm not too sure.
Opposite de Koning with Quinten Hermans as well. It's good terrain for him. Sandro Meurissen, the likes of Vergalito. Il Bandido is here from Italy, as well as Fabio van den Bosque and Axel Laurens. Keep your eye on Alpecin de Koning. They too continuing to rack up the wins, and another very good news story for them from the Vuelta a España. What a final stage that was, eh? Caden Groves showing that he can do it from the breakaway as well. The next of our small but beautiful towns on your picture. Everywhere seems to have a castle as well. Well, that's a grand duchy, but they had a few places to live, didn't they? They didn't have to, go back home Oh, stay in the next town. This is Useldanger Castle. And of course, the centrepiece of yet another picturesque town. Just hanging out here. It's going to be a big ask for them to make it to our final categorised climb of the day, though, Brian.
By the looks of things, but we did mention this a little bit before, and it went out another minute, but I don't think it'll happen for a second time. I think what Soudal Quickstep was trying to kind of instigate something that never really kind of happened, so Dries Devenings was pulled to the front again to try and bring this gap down a little bit. But from what I see, it's a strong enough breakaway, but like you alluded to, I don't think they'll go to the finish. It's more about kind of saving the energy of your team and, you know, looking at this run in towards the finish and how you can benefit from it.
In and out of the rubbish zone. I have to say that, what, 2-3 years into that practice now, it seems to have been adopted very, very well. And I know everybody was up in arms, weren't they, at the start? People don't like change, do they? But what a difference that has made to the image of cycling, if nothing else, Brian. You know, we just don't get people, you know, throwing things away into these beautiful places we go to anymore. I think it's a really welcome change, and one that seems to have just been adopted after all of that hullabaloo and noise at the start, and has gone down really well.
It has, and I hope it keeps being adopted by, you know, the club riders as well, because quite often, you know, I'll go out on the bike and see wrappers at the side of the road. It's quite easy to just put in your pocket. There's no reason to keep them. I know they get a little bit kind of sticky and things like that, but, you know, just put them in your pocket or under your jersey or somewhere and just get rid of them when you can.
Yeah, I'd add something onto that as well. Certainly living in somewhere that's a big destination for a lot of people to come around the world and ride their bikes. Of course, a beautiful, beautiful part of the world. But the amount of absolute rubbish, gels and, you know, tubes that have been punctured, air canisters, things like that you see on the road, it is embarrassing sometimes. As you predicted, Brian, the Oracle, the gap's gone down below a minute, 53 seconds now.
Yeah, it's a case, Rob, of not really kind of chasing the breakaway. It's a case of trying to make it difficult. As you said, it's kind of up and down now. You know, if the average pace is, I don't know, 40 kilometres an hour, then, you know, it brings in, you know, everybody within the peloton. If it's up the kind of 47, 48, then it's a little bit harder. You know, you squeeze in the legs of many of your kind of rivals, and I think by the looks of things, Alaphilippe just likes that a little bit harder to kind of try and kind of deaden the legs of some of the other rivals and some of the other helpers that they've got.
Out to the farmlands again, 32 k's to go. A bright but fairly blustery afternoon in Luxembourg. Nice temperatures for riding your bike at 22 degrees. Gap at 48 seconds as the turns continue to be exchanged.
I know it's beautiful towns, but having covered the Tour of Britain recently, and every town that we go into, it was like all the fans were out, but by the looks of things, you know, it's kind of sparse at the side of the roads.
A lot of that probably more to do with general culture of attending events.
Possibly.
That's something that in Great Britain is extremely well done, whatever the event, whatever the sport.
Well, there's nobody watching in Britain, I don't think, because of the amount of people on the side of the road.
I will leave that discussion to another day. There's Sir Crow on the back.
And
113 just in front of him is Mark Hirschi, moving swiftly on, Brian.
He's another man for today, Mark Hirschi.
If you remember last year, it was a very selective finish, wasn't it, that final couple of kilometres? As we go to the Helpuknap Chapel. Again, that looks like something out of a film set as well, sitting in this afternoon light. The sun down there and in the middle of the woods. This race doing a very, very good job of showing, again, one of the smallest countries on the planet off to the world. Time for a last drink, maybe. Or maybe not. Too much work to do just to stay out in the front. Again, we aren't on the ground here, Brian, but I can imagine this is a very nice race to be at if you are a rider or a staff member, given what I've just said about this being one of the smallest countries on the planet. Not massive transfers, you're never really more an hour in the car away from wherever you're trying to get to. And I can't imagine that you're changing hotel.
That's the biggest thing. And as a team, you look at, if you're in the same hotel, then great, but on the flip side of that, Rob, all these staff members here, they all work hard. And you don't often see the kind of life in the day of a staff member of a team. So every race that you go to, and, there's a lot of, I try to kind of restrict it to about 120 days a year. Some people insisted in doing a little bit more, but you get a chance of kind of burnout because you're kind of full on the whole time, get very little sleep. But they all work hard, so irrelevant of the race, the country and everything like that. Okay, it's nice, because some of them still do a little bit of exercise when they can, whether it's kind of after the stage, they go out for a little run, or they meet in the morning and they go out for a little run. And I say running and not cycling, because when you go out on the bike, you don't really go out on the bike for half an hour, do you? And running gives you that little bit kind of more exercise, and it's quicker to do and easier because you're limited to be time. So staff members work really, really hard, but I think the main thing is, if you've not got that kind of travel, that elongates the day, because you've got the mechanics that have been out on the road all day and they have to get back and straight to work. And if you've got a 2 hour, 3 hour, 4 hour transfer, that's when it starts to hurt. That's when it takes you into the kind of middle of the night.
Yeah, having been in and around events and travel, I can tell running seems to do a lot more for you, doesn't it? It's that nice escape. I've got an issue about that now, Brian. I'm turning 40 in a couple of months, but the problem is my knees have already got there before me.
Well, let me know in a couple of months what it feels like to be 40 then.
I think the knees might have moved on a decade before then. But yes, no, it's just getting out in the fresh air, isn't it? And getting that half an hour break from, like you say, the monotony of the hotel mechanic's truck, or, whatever your job is. You might be, if you're a sports director, you're sitting in the car all day. That's not a particularly healthy existence, is it? And then, the way you talk to sports directors now, there's a world of emails and apps and things to check. There's race plans. There's a heck of a lot of admin to do. It's a very long day, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. You're looking for that kind of little bit of a kind of half hour, and not unless you're kind of Sean Yates and go out at the crack of dawn and don't sleep and do a nice kind of couple of hours. But you do need that kind of exercise, and it's a lot easier to do with running. And you don't have the time to kind of ride bike or do anything. I know some people used to kind of swim and do different things, even just go for a walk, just get a little bit of fresh air. But yeah, it's always the case that kind of knees and joints and running doesn't suit everybody. And I think one of the years we went on site for the Giro d'Italia, I'm not running, no way I'm running. And Sean was always at me, come out and running with us. I said, no, I can't run, I'm a cyclist. And I went to the Italian gyms, and one of the gyms, I was on one of the exercise bikes, and in the downstroke, my heel was hitting the ground. And I just said, enough of this, Sean, I'm coming out running with you tomorrow, take it easy on me. And that's how my running career started.
There you go. You heard it first on GCN Plus and Discovery Plus. Brian Smith's running hero is none other than Sean Kelly.
Well, he's not my hero, he's my trainer. He's my coach.
Oh. You could be forgiven for thinking that there's not too much happening on the road. There isn't too much happening in terms of the race yet, but we're not far now, Brian, from the launch pads, from the intermediate sprint, from the race in terms of the stage win really being launched.
Yeah, it's a slow build. Still just Devonine setting a pace at the front. There's so many teams. I think when we came on air with Movistar and Israel Premier Tech, saw a bit of a glimpse of Tudor Pro Cycling, but all in all, it's a lot of teams have just kind of sat back, and when normally that happens, they're all kind of sitting and waiting, and I think we are going to see quite a nice final to today's stage.
Steven Kruijswijk, talking of riders from Jumbo-Visma, so close to winning a Grand Tour himself, wasn't he? In the pink, Colle dell'Agnello, Giro d'Italia, and into the snow. He's been very unlucky with injuries and crashes in his career, hasn't he? And injuries this last 18 months or so as well. But he's a rider who the team still believes in, and, well, if he can refine top form in Grand Tours, it is another one of the top climbers in the world to add to your arsenal, isn't it?
Did you catch much of the Tour of Britain?
No, there was a rather other big race I was watching in the afternoon, John, in Spain, Brian. One that had more than sprint finishes.
Yeah, well, I was covering the Tour of Britain. And Steven Kruijswijk rode at the front pretty much the whole race. And I think I said it at the time that for someone that came close to winning a Grand Tour, that's what you want in a team. Somebody that is potentially a Grand Tour winner. And if you got a few of them on your team, then your quid's in. They'll be with you in the high mountains and the flatlands and things like that, and look after you. So he did. Himself and Joos van Emden were the two engines of that team. That's why it came down to the sprint finishes, because of both of those riders.
All joking aside, by the way, really well done to the Tour of Britain organisers. I know it was extremely difficult to put a race on, and of course you talked about the crowds, Brian. Brilliant to see them back. 25 kilometres to go. 38 seconds is the gap. Turkels, Braat and Wenzel. Sun shining. And they know that they're into the last quarter of a century today. Hardest and most of the climbs are out the way. But there's two beasts remaining. Got a couple of short, uncategorised climbs here, but the beasts I'm talking about are the Côte de Staffilter inside the final 9 kilometres and the Kirchberg, upon which this stage finishes in the Luxembourg capital. UAE Emirates start to awake from their slumber. Remember former winner in Ulysses here, Brandon McNulty will be one to watch for the overall, won't he? Certainly if there's a time trial and a big, difficult mountain stage involved. Let's say hilly stage involved. We're talking about 18% gradients to be climbed 3 times. We're getting to the intermediate sprint now here in Mensch. Inside the next kilometre it arrives. Should be around 400 metres, 500 metres now if the ticker's right. And again, in terms of bonus seconds, it's going to go to the breakaway here. And there's the Euro prizes as well. And we're getting towards the end of the season due time, so some money to put into the pot. And the intermediate sprint classification too. Well, on my map, 23.7 to go was the moment. There's a sign up here. Let's have a look. And it's just direction. I'm lost. In any case, as far as intermediate sprint's concerned, with bonus seconds and the like, that's going to become much more interesting and much more important once the GC's on the way after today, Brian.
You would think so, but it's a significant time trial. Not too sure 5-6 seconds will make a bit of a difference. It might do at some stage of the general classification. I hope it does in the final stage. We get 2 sprints in the circuit at the end, so you know, hopefully it does and we get some exciting racing, but let's see.
33 seconds. Cars start to make their way out of the gap now. It's been a valiant effort to stay out as long as possible across really difficult terrain today. If you're just joining us, this is a stage that is 155 kilometres long, 2,500 metres of climbing, and some of the top riders in the world. There's 10 World Tour teams here. And some of the second division teams present have brought, well, some of their top talent as well. And at Meerschassel, a little more modern than some we've seen out the sticks. They know the catch isn't far away. The black jerseys of Tudor Pro through the centre. Brian, you talked about it, their mentality, riding as if they're already a world team. They've proved it throughout the year, winning some of the most historic races in the sport. In fact, the oldest classic in the world was taken by them, by Arvid de Klein in Milan-Turin, right at the start of the year. And I know really that was a breakthrough win for them, something that they're extremely proud of. And watch this space. This is a team that's on its way to big things, on its way to some big name signings, we know that. Matteo Trentin, probably the headline name of those, but there are many coming. And of course, some very big races, I think, will be ridden by them next year. Possibly even a Grand Tour debut. Will Barter on the left-hand side for Movistar. Lotto Destiny have been in fine form this year on the right. They've got Adam Verhoek, who's back at the team, by the way, after a very, very short spell away. Not even a year he lasted. He couldn't stay away. Brent Volmuur, Maxi Vogels, Matthijs Paaskens, Pascal Eenkhoorn and Victor Kapenaerts is their squad here. Gap below half a minute now. Couple of Cofidis jerseys moving up on the left. Another team with a strong squad. We said it right at the start today. This is probably the strongest start list in the Tour of Luxembourg since the date change. And that came in 2020. Yonis Aguirre is here, two-time Tour de France stage winner. Wallais, classics man. Perez, who gets better with age, and young Delettre, who keeps getting better as well. And young Oliver Knight, British rider, is part of their squad too. A reminder, again, I know some of you have been switching on as the afternoon goes. This is a race that comprises 20 teams of just 6 riders. Now we've got the results of the sprint, the 3, 2 and 1 second going behind, with Brad taking the 3 seconds and the 5 points, Wenzel with 3 points, Turgles taking 2, and of course the last 2 taking 2 and 1 seconds respectively. Nothing doing really, as we explained just a few kilometres back with regards to the general classification. We will start to see that possibly, as Brian was saying, in stages 3 and 5. 20 k's to go today, and now it's the flattest part of the parcours for the next 10 kilometres or so.
Yeah, but the thing about it, I think we're going to see the replay of this sprint, Rob, because we rolled through it, and I don't think the TV director picked up on it. There we go, just rolled through. It said rush, but there was no rush.
It certainly wasn't.
No.
There is here, though. Lidl Trek. And Dario Catallo moving up the left-hand side. Just great to see him back on his bike. Approaching the grand finale of the opening stage of this year's Tour of Luxembourg. An event that was born in the 1930s. Used to take place in June until a post-Covid date change to the end of the summer, the beginning of autumn. A race rebooted, reinvigorated. A race with 5 races within a race. 5 different stages, entertaining ones as well. We'll have the race for each of those. And of course the general classification that is likely to be conditioned by the Queen Stage on day 3 and the time trial on stage 4. We're on castle watch as always in this part of the world. This is Schönfels Castle, or what's left of it. But whatever is left of it is beautifully preserved. Look at that Gothic architecture towards the top there. And not much left of the gap now for the breakaway. 4 riders got out there initially. They had more than 6 minutes. 4 riders from 3 teams, 2 Belgians, a Dane and a Luxembourger, all on their debut in this race, so it's going to be a memorable first day, particularly from the 3 who survived. Wenzel, the young man from this very nation, the 20-year-old. Braat, the Belgian from Flanders-Baloise, in the white, blue and yellow there. And in the yellow, red and black at the front, Lennart Turgels, who's on his way to being the king of the mountains. Perhaps there's still one classified climb to go. Looks as though we'll see action from the peloton heading there, however. And without even trying, they're bringing this back 19 seconds now. Movistar, they've been very active today. Lots of talk and rumours swirling around in the press, some almost unthinkable ones described in the press. For Movistar, we'll see what's going to happen there over the winter. Nairo Quintana, Alejandro Valverde. It's like we're going back in time. Maybe they are just that, though. Rumours, we will see. I think there's very little doubt that Valverde wants to come back. Confirmed recently in the press by Eusebio Nsue. Of course, a man into his 40s now, despite his glittering career. Difficult to see that being a direction that the team would want to move in. That before you even get started on the change of the team already, moving on from one personality, quite naturally dominating things. They're a team that's maybe looking for their identity at the minute, and certainly looking for results. They haven't had too many of them. Got a really strong team here, though, and obviously looking to try and make it count with the way they're riding. Calm before the storm, Brian?
Looks that way at 22 seconds. I think it's just a case of fighting for position. I'm not saying it's a big fight at the moment, but as everybody knows, it's just when you get inside the last kind of 20-25 kilometres, keep your team leader out of trouble, right towards the front, and I think that's a case of what we've got. Not a huge peloton, but still more riders in front of you as you go around some of these kind of corners and things like that. The more chance there is that, you know, touch a wheels, a crash, and then you're on the back foot. So Yeah, very important, and coming down even more as we go through this town.
Final categorised climb of the day is the Côte de Staffilter. The last time we've climbed this particular climb, the last couple of years, Almeida was the stage winner a couple of years ago. Madouas won last year. But it's the climb after it where we see the end game, really. That's the Kirchberg, once you're back into the Luxembourg capital. Just under a couple of kilometres long. Starts immediately after the descent from Staffilter. They come around this bend. The peloton will see the three men in the breakaway. One more acceleration and it will be day over for the three escapees. Visual contact. And it works both ways. Don't look back, eh? And before we get into the fight for the stage, a reminder that we know the European Championships are on at the minute, aren't they? You can watch that live and on demand, depending on your territory restrictions. And the place to watch, Discovery Plus, GCN Plus. Brian and I are going to be with you all week until Sunday with the Tour de Luxembourg, Tour of Luxembourg. And then we're off to the Italian Classics. Plenty more still to come on the road as we move into the final month and a half of this year's 2023 season. And once we're done on the road, we'll be heading out to the Crossfield and on to the boards of the TCL, the Track Champions League, which returns for a third season. Just being left to hang to dry. If that's reminded you to take your washing in, now is not the time. Because we're approaching the final climbs and the action is about to kick off. Keep your arm, Mühlberger, Austrian champion for Movistar. He's had something of a comeback this year. We saw him in the Tour of the Alps, didn't we, after a couple of dry years without any success. Can he be the man to give Movistar some late season success? And thinking forward, thinking about the points, and it'll quickly come around, Brian. We talked about it last year, didn't we? Relegation, promotion. Movistar will be wanting to rack up the points after not an amazing period in terms of success.
Yeah, they'll be wanting what they can get, but just watch here. We came up and, you know, the young man, Wenzel, just went up to say, look, I've had enough. I don't know about you. Okay, I'll shake your hands. And there's a couple of them not willing to give up, but I think he was trying to kind of call a bit of a truce there. But I think Turgos had another idea. They want to continue. You know, these Belgian riders, they go to the end. But the young lad was like, okay, can we go back now? Can we stop my legs hopping?
I think Wenzel will think, being in one of the local teams, that he'll be sending a breakaway on at least one more occasion in this particular race. And the Leopard TOGT Pro Cycling Team, development team from Luxembourg. Uno X start to show themselves on the left, just behind Lidl Trek. Wenzel continues in the end, and it's Vito Braat who's the man who's decided to leave a gap. Look behind from Turkles. Perhaps disgusted that a fellow Belgian wouldn't want to continue in the break with him, Brian.
Now, what's Wenzel do here? He gives him a turn. Oh, I have to do this now. I thought we shook hands that we were going to get caught and that was the end of the breakaway, but you're forcing me to do another turn.
Or maybe the sports director on the radio said, hang on, we don't give up on a breakaway. They've invited us here. We ride till we get caught.
Just putting on the washing machine at the moment, Rob.
It's not quite on the top spin setting yet, is it? But it's certainly starting to ramp up. 15 seconds. And those riders being spun out the centre, they'll be spat out down the sides. Jumbo Visma start the move. We've got road furniture and roundabouts to add into the mix. Natural once we're on our way back into the capital here. That's where we started today, at the Neumünster Abbey. Twelve and a half kilometres from the conclusion of the opening day of the Skoda Tour in Luxembourg. It's the breakaway with two of the original four riders left, but the adventure is almost at an end. Mats Wenzel, Lennart Turgels, two riders about to be swallowed up by a chasing peloton. We're approaching the final categorised climb of the day. That's the Korte Staffelte. And after that, we're on our way to the Kirchberg to finish this stage. The break of the day is done. It is time to go racing, Brian Smith.
Yeah, X coming up. We've kind of mentioned them, but we haven't seen them. I know they're riding in red, the Tour de France kit from this year. They're rather proud of it. And why not? So they've got Tobias Johannesson, who finished well in the Tour of Britain. I think this is another kind of stage race that he'll be kind of eyeing up as well. The young man that won the Tour of L'Avenir a couple of years ago, but Lotto Destiny as well in the red, but with the blue coming up towards the front as well. But this will be a nice shot.
Two sets of brothers riding for Uno X, the Johannesson and Kulset as well. And away from rural Luxembourg back into what is a fairly cosmopolitan small city, the capital. And it's Andre Amador time. A man from Costa Rica driving things up here. Arke Sam Stiktat to lend a hand as well. But there's no consistent move. It all comes together and then breaks up a little bit. 2.5 Ks long this climb, maximum 12.7%, 6.5% average, Brian.
Yeah, I think their job was to ride hard into the bottom of the climb, but a few of the riders thought, no, I'm not riding that hard. Amador goes back and then gets the peloton on the wheel and said, you're supposed to. So I think one rider's just, something happened in the middle of the peloton there, but I think Amador led in there, but no one else followed, so the gaps opened, so he had to go back and do it all again.
Well, keep your eye on Cuculera here, who has Richard Carapaz on his wheel. Remember, this tops out with 9 kilometres to go, so already just under 2 kilometres to the top. It's a very quick descent after that, and as soon as they're done descending, there's no flat, Brian. It's a climb to the finish on the Kirchberg.
Yeah, it's on now, and Michael Woods is up there second place, Carapaz at the front. I think a lot of the riders we're kind of talking about, a few riders being distanced at the back already, so Mark Hirschi in the white on the left hand side, Ciccone up there for Ludo Trek in the red helmet, but nobody's deciding to take it on. But I thought by the looks of things that EF Education Easy Post and Arkea Samsic, with the way they kind of rode into the bottom of the climb, I thought, right, they're obviously trying to look after their teammate, and we're going to see a launch, but by the looks of things, nothing's happening.
Yeah, Carapaz was at the front there. His teammate Healy was not too far behind as well. We see that Felix Gall has moved up. Remember, now Tour de France stage winner. Tischmann Note sits 3 wheels from the front. Axel Laurence is the man at the front for Alpecin-Deceuninck in the blue jersey. And as we look at it now, for now, it's one big stalemate.
Yeah, for the moment. And potentially You know, I think it was a case of EF Education Easy Post. It was a case of maybe positioning for Carapaz, but which he's in position. Is he going to go in the attack? We'll have to wait and see. But like you say, a bit of a kind of stalemate. Nobody wanted to take it on. Michael Woods on the right-hand side as well for Israel Premier Tech. Van Wilder for Soudal Quickstep. Victor Campenaerts for Lotto Destiny, the reds, the light blue. But nobody really kind of wanted to go in the attack.
Kruijswijk moving up as well. Ben O'Connor's never far from the front. And now we have a move. Flanders Baloise trying to take advantage of this stalemate, try to steal a march. And Israel Premier Tech trying to join them.
Yeah, it looks like Camel Bonnet at the front there for Flanders, a rider that's slowly come to form over the last few weeks. Saw him in the Tour of Britain, he rode well there. So, like you say, taking advantage, there was nobody doing anything, so why not? But unfortunately, Michael Woods is there in tow, and I don't think anybody will want him to go.
Still just less than a kilometre to the top now. Remember the big maximum gradients, well into the double digits. Not a consistent climb though this, a couple of ramps in it. Woods looks around, sees there's a gap, and of course he'll ride here.
Yeah, I think that's what he did. He looked around and thought, what? I've got a gap. And Kruijswijk is the rider at the front of the peloton.
Woods as well, Tour de France stage winner this year, remember. That wonderful return to the Puy de Dôme, wasn't it? And it was Canada Day for a second year running. Hugo Hull last time out. Michael Woods this year. That wonderful moment over in Canada in the World Tour races where we saw all three Canadian Tour de France stage winners on the same stage, because their sports director Steve Bauer is there as well. But Woods here not being allowed too much rope. Kruijswijk, as you mentioned, the man who's just controlling things behind. Certainly not yet as aggressive as we might have forecasted it to have been.
No, I think I said fireworks, and definitely not fireworks now. I thought there would have been a little bit more, but it's really, really conservative. And Kruijswijk, instead of letting things go, he's just tapping out a rhythm, possibly the same pace as they're doing in front. And I really do think that Michael Woods is in two minds whether to go all in for this or whether to kind of sit back a little bit. And I think it's the latter. He's not going all in. They obviously have a plan for one or two riders. I think he was a little bit surprised he got a gap, but why not push on and force the hand of the others? But I really do think that, you know, they'll be thinking of maybe someone else within their team for today.
Jumbo Visma the chase here. There's some breaking news in that. Good news for Nathan Verhooydonk, who can return home from hospital today. In a sporting sense, though, I'm afraid it's not great news. He has been told that he must stop his professional career. Of course, we'll talk more about that tomorrow, but very, very good. And sending all our love and best to Nathan Verhooydonk, who thankfully is out of hospital and is on his way home. Here's Guérin. Bonnet. And at the back, Woods, who looks behind and is just going to freewheel here. Of course, if he sees this gap and he gets towards the bottom of the final climb, he'll enjoy it.
Yeah,
there's still really a bit of road to do before they get there, no.
Yeah, he doesn't want to take too much of an advantage. They have clearly got another plan for someone else, because normally Michael Woods would be, you know, riding a little bit more aggressively and, you know, doing a longer pull, but he's just holding back, just like pretty much of the peloton.
Patrick Gambert here at the back. Alongside him, Alexandre Delettre. Another rider trying to jump across now. Didn't happen on the final classified climb, but we still have the Kirchberg to go. And this looks like it might well be Gregor Mühlberger. It's a rider from Movistar. Is it that Austrian Champions jersey? I think it is.
Yeah.
It's going to add some extra firepower, and the finish, you would say, is perfect for Mühlberger, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, you know, this climb, I think I said at the start, Aramburu, you know, he looked as if he's got really good form in Canada. So have a couple of options, you know, put Mühlberger here. So, looked round and lost your glasses.
That's Michael Wood's glasses. He still sits here in third wheel. And now the two teams have worked longer than anybody else all day. Israel Premier Tech and Movistar have riders in this front group. Remember, Soudal Quickstep has spent most of the second half of the stage working hard too. They still have Alaphilippe, and it's they now are in the chase. 6 seconds with 7 kilometres to go. Remember, the last 1 and a bit kilometres are uphill to the line, Brian.
Yeah, they are. Kind of long drag up towards the finishing line, so we'll see. It's a really kind of cagey run in towards the finish. I can't still believe we're 6.6 to go. You know, especially beforehand. Normally when it's a bit cagey beforehand, we see kind of fireworks in the end, but everybody really leaving this one late.
It's been a beautiful day in Luxembourg. Haven't yet had the fireworks we expected, but this is about to come back together, I think. Or it was, until there was that little bit of hesitation at the front of the peloton again. Another kilometre ticks by, and they're going to go by very quickly until there's just under 2 to go. It's all downhill till there.
It's a big wide road now, Rob. Plenty of space, plenty of room for movement, and I think everybody's just thinking this last climb is hard enough.
It's one big effort from Soudal Quickstep, and Masnada to close things down. Oof. And it was almost one big problem there. Right, swimming pool weather today, but they're all watching the race. Five kilometres remaining on this opening stage in Luxembourg, on the streets now of the country's capital. It's where we started today, up at Neumünster Abbey, and we're going to finish on the Kirchberg. Azure Desert with one of the strongest riders in the race, one of the stronger riders this season, Aurélien Paré-Peintre, who's a stage winner in the Giro d'Italia. Aker Samsic now moving up, not a team we've spent most of the day talking about, not a team with their strongest lineup, but Jente Biermans likes a finish like this. Cofidis moving on the right side, and they're red and white. It's been cagey, it's been conservative, certainly for the parkour today. But how's it going to finish on the opening day? Azure Desert moving several other riders up now. 4 of their 6 are Grand Tour stage winners. 2 of them this season. Carapaz and Healy moved in there as well for EF Education Easy Post. Have to both be 2 of the big favourites. Carapaz in particular, he's another man who loves a finish like this. This is Eenkorn now for Lotto Destiny. On his wheel, Victor Kapenaerts.
I think the problem here is just gaining good position and keeping good position in these kind of big open roads, fast roads. It's always that very difficult, and that's where you need your teammates to kind of look after you.
Søren Kragh is about to be put into position for Alpecin de Koning as well. You can see Valentin Madouas, the French champion, moving up on the left-hand side. He, of course, won this stage last year. He started the day with David Gaudu and Thibaut Pinot alongside him. They have both failed to finish, both said to be not feeling great. Here we go, left turn, and around 1.5 kilometres now until the start of the Kirchberg and the final climb up to the finish line today. It's Kapenaerts who moved to the front. EF Education Easy Post getting another man towards the front here. Looks like Rutsch. Road starts to gently go uphill, but it'll rise sharper to the line soon. Here she's never too far away, and he's a man to keep your eye on, the Swiss champion for UAE Emirates. Had an excellent race last year, winning stages, of course. One by one, they'll do their turns and start the peel off. It's been a hard day of work for Israel Premier Tech. They've really given everything today. And now it's Ulle. Left-hand side, though, an opportunity for Felix Gall, and we know he likes it uphill. He's stolen a march here, Brian.
Yeah, he has. He has, certainly has. You know, big motivation, home tour, and you know, looking good for the moment, but I think 2.5 kilometres to go, a little bit too early. There's still a lot of riders in here just sitting and waiting. I think it's remaining patient now. It's okay making these efforts, but very difficult to keep this going with the chasing peloton.
Cal then continue to try and spin away. It's his style, isn't it? What a stage win that was towards the end of the Tour de France, let's not forget. He's had the year of his dreams. Excellent in the Alps. Superb in Swiss. And he did what he did in the Tour. I should say, with one of the stronger teams here on paper. Tranchant, Peters, Paré-Peintre, O'Connor, this man and Bonamour. It's Bonamour who waits in the peloton with his teammates. Now Arkel will try and close this. It's a big effort, and this is going to cause some pain in the legs of those trying to follow here, Brian.
Definitely, but he closes the gap, doesn't he? Victor Campanar's just sitting in the wheel in third place. Hershey in a very good place at the moment. There's a few people just sitting and waiting for this kind of last acceleration.
And a gap opens now then. Soudal Quick-Step decide they have to close this. UAE are going to take the bait as well. Carapaz is there to follow in about 10th wheel. This now is Victor Campanar's trying to violently shake the tree and see what falls. And look at the power output there. Everyone else able to follow though. And keep your eye on Van Wilder there, looking strong in third wheel.
Yeah, Carapaz also there, the Ecuadorian champion. Soren Krauw.
And now Carapaz goes.
Yep.
And now Carapaz makes his move. Richard Carapaz is away, trying to build up to the Giro di Lombardia. Remember, this is a team that's got options here because Ben Healy's following behind as well. Ilan Van Wilder decides that Carapaz is dangerous enough that he will follow him, and there is peace yet again. But for now, that is until Carapaz starts to try and put the pace on the pedals again, and another gap starts to open up into the final kilometre now. It's Carapaz and Van Wilder, and now UAE close the gap. O'Connor's not far away for Agir-Desert. Movistar riders moving up. Tish Benoit is there in the yellow. Last year's winner on this stage, you can see French champion in about 20th position. Race director Schleck said he expected no more than 20 riders to the finish here. We've got many more now. Here's O'Connor as we see Benoit suddenly appearing at the front. Woods is there as well. On the right, you can see Ulissi. He likes these sort of finishes. Aramburu still in the mix, waiting for Movistar. He was Brian Smith's pick. 500 metres to go. Corbin Strong not far away as well. And Uno X now take it up at the front. Final turn on the left-hand side. Final few metres. And this is all that's left to spread it out for the win. It's an opportunity to try and lead it out. Keep your eye on Strong. Keep your eye too on Ulissi as they come to the line. It's Israel Premier Tech with Strong and to go through it. Aramburu is there. Can he come around? He'll certainly try. He's in the centre now. Alex Aramburu is there. Alex Aramburu about to hit the front, but he's not going to hit it. It's Strong who is the strongest. And Israel Premier Tech, who have worked all day long, get their award. Almost 4 hours of toil and suffering. They take the stage win and the early lead in the Skoda Tour of Luxembourg. Krauw was there. Aramburu, Ulissi. But it was Strong who did the business.
Yeah, it's not often that you get, you know, as soon as it became on air, you had Movistar and Israel Premier Tech riding on the front and they get first and second. It was clear in the run in from Michael Woods that, you know, that was the plan. They didn't want to kind of spoil that. That was their man for today. And we kind of duly picked them out. But strong there from Soren Krauw in the end. But I think the race director, Andy Schleck, was thinking of, you know, this would be a little bit harder. Okay, it could have been. It could have been a select group of about 20, but there was a lot left in the end. It was just a kind of cagey run in towards that finish. Some nice attacks. Carapaz deciding that you know, he was trying to go Felix Gall, but in the end it came down to a sprint, and Corbin Strong took this one on from the front. I have to say that Soren Krauw made hard work of that coming down. You know, he pretty much went the longest way. Aramburu was on the wheel but just couldn't come past and had to settle for third place. Soren Kral came very close there.
It's Corbin Strong of Israel Premier Tech and New Zealand who takes the opening stage. It is just his second career win at this level, having taken a stage of the Tour of Britain last year. And the 23-year-old from Invercargill arrives in continental Europe. And in this company, you have to say it's his biggest career win.
Yeah, I have to say that. He won similar time of the year last year in the Tour of Britain at Glenshee, and it was another kind of long, kind of uphill, kind of slow headwind finish, and he was strong enough to win it. But that wasn't a fast sprint in the end, but you know, it's just who had the something left in the legs. I thought something would have happened in the penultimate climb, but that wasn't the case. Everybody was clearly waiting for this final climb.
Stage 1 delivers its verdict. The winner is Corbin Strong. And Israel Premier Tech taking the reward for all of the day's hard work. Podium time, and the great thing about winning the opening stage, it will be leader's jersey time for Corbin Strong. There's that spread again, and when he looks back at the riders he's beaten here. Tour de France stage winners. Ciccone up the front there. Said, oh, Quickstep not getting reward for their hard work. And in the end, a much bigger group than the organisers were expecting. They're conservatively ridden last couple of climbs, but brilliantly held together for Corbin Strong. So we've got our first winner, our first leader. We expect it to be for many more fast men tomorrow in Marmia. Longest stage of the race at almost 200 kilometres. Should be one for the sprinters. Corbin Strong, though, on a more selective course today, has really done the business. Again, you can see that sprint on the right-hand side, Brian. You made some allusion to it there. Søren Kragh is in form, but maybe just made the decision to make things a little bit harder for himself there.
Yeah, it's all ifs and buts sprints. It's what you do at the time. If he'd been where Aramburu had been, then it could have been a different story. He did go around a long way, a bit of traffic in front of him. But it's all about making these kind of small efforts to get in the right position.
Corbin Strong wins the opening stage of the Skoda Tour of Luxembourg, beating Søren Kragh and Alex Aramburu. Diego Lisi, the former overall winner of this race, in fourth, and Tish Pinot in fifth, with Pluimers, Ciccone, Kirsch, Masnada and Van Wilder in the top 10. The first sorting out then, but no big differences, and I guess the positive side of a conservative end to the race, Brian, it means that it's a very open book as we go from tomorrow. We expect to be one for the sprinters to the Queen stage on Wednesday. It's not on Monday, is it today? On Friday. I'll get there eventually.
Yeah, I think an important one is it's always a bit of a decision to make. What do you want to do before a time trial? Because that could shape the general classification. If you don't have a good time trial, then you want to make use of the Queen stage. So I think the way it looks is kind of, it'll be finely balanced, because there was a few people like Carapaz who want to take time on Friday because he doesn't have a good time trial, and maybe give him some options for the final day. So yeah, today, tomorrow, down to the kind of punchy sprinter types, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it'll be the GC, which I think it will still be pretty close on Sunday, and we could see a very entertaining final few laps.
Here is that last kilometre again. Head in by Tischbenot. You can see Omen behind him, about 10 wheels behind him as well.
I think
500 metres to go here.
Sharmik comes up to the front, but he's not really leading anybody out. I think what he wanted to do is be into that corner. See, they're all kind of setting up here. This is where Soren Krauh possibly made the mistake. Not a good position. You see him there, going round the corner there. So a very short kind of finishing straight. Sharmik comes out, opens up. Elise there. Corbin Strong, pretty much perfect leader. Adam Baru, I don't think he just had the legs there, but Soren Krauh coming round the outside, round a long way, out of position in that final corner, and I think paid for it in the end. But I think Corbin Strong got it completely right, and it was clear that they had a plan up the sleeve, because Michael Woods in the penultimate climb wasn't really going to go in full out.
Luxembourg, its capital city, and here's the winner.
For the win on the first stage. Did you expect to win this first stage of Tour of Luxembourg?
Yeah, it's a really nice feeling for me. We got a really strong team here, and they worked perfectly well for me all day, and it was really cool to pay them off with this victory. I think, yeah, I've been in good shape all year, but haven't quite finished off with a victory yet this year. So it's really nice to get a victory here in Luxembourg.
Nice. So, I mean, there has been a lot of big names on the start list. How is it for you as quite a young rider to actually win the first stage against all those big names out there?
Yeah, it's a really cool feeling actually. Today, I had a good race last weekend in Quebec, and I really felt that in the peloton today. Actually, I had a bunch of riders that I've never had come up talk to me, say good ride last weekend and stuff like that. So it's yeah, it's really cool to carry on with this momentum and get a victory today with such a deep field here in Luxembourg.
So is it also an ambition of your team for the next stages to actually go for the GC, or do you have more like stage wins?
I think yeah, we really came here to win races. So yeah, it's cool to start off the week this way. But yeah, we got, like I said, a really strong team here. I think any one of our guys in our team, probably bar me, could win the GC. We're not the strongest time trialling team, but really strong punchy climbing team. So we're looking forward to the rest of the stages here in Luxembourg.
Well, excited to see what you're going to do on the next stage, and I wish you good of luck.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Naturally delighted then, the winner. And showing their ambition for the whole week. And when you look down, they've got somebody for every stage almost.
They definitely have. Like you just heard from the interview there, not the best time trialists, so they have to take their opportunities where they came, and this was their first opportunity. Tomorrow could be a little bit different, but you think that Corbin Strong would be their kind of best bet for that one again. But, you know, we've got other sprinters in this race that will be eyeing up tomorrow.
And the early general classification with the time bonuses factored in looks like this. Søren Krauh in second place at 4 seconds. Alex Aramburu in third at 6. The rest at 10 seconds. Corbin Strong is the early leader and first wearer of the yellow jersey. And Kiwi cycling in rude health, isn't it? Of course, long been strong on the track, long had one or two riders here and there, but they're with the Black Spoke team now bringing an army of riders as well. Of course, you've got the likes of what Bewley and Bennett have done on the World Tour. Fisher Black is now up there, of course. And, of course, on the women's side, Niamh Fisher Black as well. You've got Corbin Strong here, Lawrence Pithy riding. There are some fantastic young riders about.
They always have had good riders in New Zealand. I've raced against them pretty much most of my career, from Commonwealth Games level all the way up, and I think it's all about the development. It's the same with the Australians. It's a very long way to come to Europe for a lot of these countries, and New Zealand, Australia, very far away, but I think it's the development they have, the racing, you know, the track racing and road racing and things like that. If it's healthy there, then you know they can progress into other teams.
So one more look at the last kilometre. Thanks for joining Brian Smith and me, Rob Hatch. Corbin Strong, the winner on the opening day. We'll be back. And we're on the telly as well tomorrow on Eurosport, on Discovery Plus and on GCN Plus. If you miss anything this week, and all European Championships are going on at the same time, make sure you watch on repeats, on catch-up, on demand on Discovery Plus and GCN Plus. We'll see you for the second stage. Keep your eye on the time schedules as well, because no stage starts at the same time. We're on at the much earlier time, around lunchtime in Central Europe and in UK and Ireland tomorrow. We will see you then. Goodbye.
Ab den ersten Metern super Sprint, den Heidelberger Fred und dann ein Holland kommt zu später, Lukas Himmelser und den Stage1 ganz Den Zeremonie protokollär von der rechten Etappe von der Neumünster-Abtei ob die Kirchberg 160 Kilometer. Blumen gehen überreicht von den Hostessen und von den jungen Menschen am Damm. Und dann von der Gemeinde Lützeburg Champion Madame Beissel, auch vom Sponsor, den Herr Witte von Prague Factory, und auch den Herr Simon Schorius von Skoda Lützeburg. Sie sind dabei, und noch der Präsident von dem Skoda Tour, den Andy Schleck. Und wir rufen dann auf dem Podium den Wenker von der ersten Etappe, den Corbin Strong. Corbin Strong von der Equipe Israel Factor hin Kidolo Felicitationen von dem Partner, dem Herr Witt von Skoda Factory und dem Simon Schorius von Skoda Lützeburg. Und dann nicht zu vergessen auch den Trophäe als Wenker von der Stadt Lützeburg von der Madame Simon Beissel. Und dann natürlich auch ein guter Krämer, kriegt ihn überreicht an Blumen. Felicitationen für den Corbin Strong. Thank you very much. Den andere Leader am Skoda Tour 2023, den Corbin Strong. Und natürlich auch Blumen an den Jumpers für den Corbin Strong. Thank you very much, Corbin. Und dann haben sie in der Lotterie National den Herr Robbie Langers, den auf dem Podium können, für den neuen, ja, den nächsten Leader am Punkteklassement zu felicitieren. Leader in the point classification, Corbin Strong. Thank you very much. Ja, da geht es Der Max Wenzel, 1 Punkt, nur 2 Punkte Avance. Und wir noch mehr Menge alles durchsetzen für an dem Punkteklassement vom Bierpreis 14. Hin hast du ein richtiger Kletterer, den Herr Simon, zusammen mit dem Leader am Bierpreis vom Mayo von Fitlein, der Max Wenzel. Merci Mats. Merci Herr Simon. Und da geht Schlag um Schlag. Als nächsten rufen wir dann auf das Podium für die Energie an der Jury. Da dürfen wir Madame. De Corbin Strong als best younger Spider aan de maillot blanc voor de Creos. Merci, thank you. En dan komen we aan de laatste koer die op het podium kunt. We doen nog een keer maillot samenkomen. En dat is dan nog naar een keer de heer sportsminister, de Georges Engel, die moet erop komen. Herr Sportsminister auch mit bei den Laureaten Lennart Teugels, die über 120 Kilometer unterstützt hat für dabei war als Flugkombativ von der Eichret hat. Da guckt man, ob ein Konkurrenten nach da sind, dann hören wir Mayo und ein Kehr als der Mats an der Korbi nach da. Ja, thank you very much. Die anderen zwei Sicherheit, wir sollen nicht vielmals merci. Nach ein Kehr, den Jingle war nicht geklickt.
So Corbin, congratulations for the win on the first stage of Tour of Luxembourg. Did you expect to win today? Was it a goal of yours?
Yeah, it was a goal of mine. I thought this finishing climb was a really nice finish for me, and yeah, but looking back on the previous years, it's been guys like Joe Almeida and Valentine Medwa, so not fast sprinters that have won up here. So I knew it was going to be a tough goal and one I really had to suffer for. So yeah, it's a really nice feeling to pull it off today.
Nice. Now we're sitting here in your yellow jersey. How does it feel to go on the start tomorrow as the leader of the race?
Yeah, it's a really cool feeling actually. The team rode really well today, and yeah, we've got a strong team here. And unfortunately, Jakob Fuglsang had to withdraw with a bit of illness, so yeah, we're all going to have to step up and ride for our leaders for the rest of the week, because we have a really strong team here and a chance to win every stage with a different rider. So yeah, we're really looking forward to the next stages.
So the GC will definitely be a goal of yours for this stage race.
I think stage 3 has got some pretty challenging climbs, and we've got some really good guys for that with Mike and Dylan, and also Chris and Hugo can climb really well as well. So yeah, I think as well with the time trial, it's not my specialty. So yeah, I'll look forward to more stage 2 and stage 5, and then help the better climbers in my team and the better time trialists for the rest of the week.
So wish you lots of luck and fast legs for the rest of the race.
Thank you very much. Cheers.